Hey everyone, my name is Yash and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you 3 lessons I've learned 7 months into the corporate world since I graduated college. So to go ahead and get things started, I'm going to share with you the 3 lessons, which are lesson number 1, you have to be prepared. Lesson number 2, you have to be mentally ready to clock into work. And lesson number 3, you have to be the biggest advocate for yourself. So to get things started, a little bit background. I have started working in the corporate world for 7 months. I started my job in the pandemic. I know not the best way to start your job, but I'm very grateful that I have one. Started my job in the pandemic in August and it's now April. So I've had a good amount of time to kind of get adjusted and kind of learn the ins and outs. Obviously, not a full in and out of the corporate world, but just know some of the teachings and some of the stuff I've learned from there. And it is a little bit different than college. I feel like college does a pretty decent job of preparing you for the real world and preparing you for some of the challenges ahead. But just like with anything that I tell you about in this channel, anything that you learn from life is that the best way to experience is to actually experience it. You can learn about it, you can read about it as much as you want, but unless you're actually in the field doing that, you're not gonna be able to experience and get to learn from it. So to get things started, I'm gonna move on to lesson number 1, which is you have to be prepared. And this one seems obvious and it seems like it just is something that you should just do. You should just be prepared all the time. But I will say, for me, in college, I worked really hard for what I had. I worked really hard for my grades. I worked really hard for all the projects I had and everything I did. However, there were a lot of times, I'm not gonna lie, for some clubs and such that I wouldn't say I BS my way, but a lot of times I would just kind of walk in, not prepared, into the meeting. I would just be like, yeah, well, I'll get to this certain topic next week, reach out to me in next week and I'll get it done. I'll get it done next time. Oh, I don't really have it prepared. And really when you said that, there was really no consequences in college when you said that. It was always like, because usually all the people that were leading, you were all leaders with were just the same age group. It was just like, oh, no, don't worry. We can just get back to you next week. We can learn back. We can, reel back in with you next week. And when I got into the real world, I guess a part of me kind of still had that same mentality of, oh, it's okay if I don't have something done. They can just reach out back to me next week. And unsurprisingly, I got a pretty big slap in the face. And it wasn't anything mean or anything, but I got an email from my manager saying that, hey, you need to start coming prepared for these meetings and start coming prepared with ideas to really act on, and really good concrete ideas. And when that email hit, it just kind of hit me. I was like, wow, like I really actually have to be super prepared. And since then, I've been very prepared for any meeting I've had, any project that's been thrown at me, literally anything you could think of. I just try to come as over prepared, because I've just learned from going to these meetings and leading them and such that being more prepared is going to be just in your benefit. So just remember that lesson number 1 is to always be prepared, because you just never know when your name is going to be called, and you don't want to be in a position where your name is called and you just don't have the answers, because it doesn't look good on you. And it's just something that has stuck with me since I've been called out. Moving on to lesson number 2, you have to be mentally ready to clock in to work. And this one is a little bit tough, and it makes sense, because I will say this: when you're in college, you have your class schedule, you have your Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes, your Tuesday, Thursday classes, but just because you have your classes, that doesn't necessarily mean you go to all of them. And you know what I mean. There's certain days where you don't feel like going to class, you don't feel like going to school that day, you don't feel like showing up to do this certain type of task. So you just call it a day. You give yourself a day off. You sleep in. You decide to maybe go get some lunch instead. Go meet with some friends. So you kind of have that mental flexibility of like, okay, I don't feel like going to work, or I don't feel like going to class that day, so I'm just gonna go ahead and not go. Well, in the real world, obviously, as we know, you can't really do that unless you take like a sick day, PTO and such, but you have to schedule that ahead. But obviously, I don't advise you to take sick days off when you're not sick. That just is not the way to go. But what happens is that in a lot of ways, work, you just have to show up and work. When you're scheduled on the calendar, you just have to show up and work. And that can be pretty daunting and pretty struggling at first, because it can almost hit you like a slap in the face, where it's like, dang, is this really what real life is like, where you just show up to work these 5 days and then you get the 2 days off? And it's a little bit of a daunting task at first, but if you can kind of just get through that mental hurdle of just realizing like, okay, it's kind of that grind of like, okay, you get up, you work those 5 days, you get the 2 days off. You just have to get used to like that mental grind of doing that. And I think that only comes with just having the practice and the experience of being doing that on a weekly basis. I think everyone kind of feels it, everyone will feel it, because it is a big difference from college where you're kind of given that flexibility to do whatever you want and whatever you choose. So lesson number 2, you have to be prepared to mentally clock into work. And I'm moving on to lesson number 3. This one is probably one of the most important ones, is you have to be the biggest advocate for yourself. And I mean that 100%, because in college or in work, unlike college, high school, wherever, you had oftentimes teachers, professors, counselors, career counselors advocating for you. If you told them what was up, they would advocate for you. They would see the work you were doing. They would try to inform you about certain positions that are open, certain internships that are open, certain jobs that are open. But when you get into the workplace, you have to realize that the people above you, your managers, your directors, yeah, their job is to take care of you and guide you and help you. But you have to realize that they have people above them and they have their own responsibilities that they're worrying about. Whether that's their own personal life, but also their own work life, where they have responsibilities, meetings and such that they have to go to. So one of my coworkers put it to me simple wording was that your director, your manager is not waking up every day and saying like, oh, what can I do to make Yash's life better? They're not thinking like that. They are, obviously they want to care for you, but they're worrying about like what are the stuff they have to get done. And the only way they can care for you and provide you the best opportunities is by you have to go out of your way and advocate for yourself. You have to go out of your way to tell them what your goals are, what your missions are, what do you want to accomplish, where do you kind of see yourself. And whenever you have these bi-weekly meetings with your managers, catch-ups and such, be very direct with them. Tell them what's up. Tell them what you want to get done. Tell them where you want to be in the future. Tell them, progress them on like what you want to do. If you have a goal to get something done, tell them about it. And by telling them about that and continuously telling them, you're then putting your thoughts and such in their mind. So now whenever a new opportunity comes, their main person they're going to go to is probably going to be you, because you kind of set that foundation precedent of telling them what's up, telling them what's on your mind, telling them what goals you're achieving. And it's really daunting at first because you don't want to seem like you're overbearing and such, but it's something that you just have to do in the workplace, because if you don't advocate for yourself, if you're feeling like you're burnt out and you don't tell your managers or your directors, then they won't know and they'll just continue going about their normal day-to-day life. And most people in this world are really good people and they want to help you. So the only way they can help you is if they know. So lesson number 3, you have to be the biggest advocate for yourself. It's so important in the workplace. It's so important in college, but very important when you get into the workplace. So there you have it. Those are my 3 lessons that I've learned being 7 months into the corporate world. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, please consider hitting the like button down below. And if you also like the other content on my channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. It helps my channel grow, helps it get known, and helps it reach other people. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for all the support in the past videos. I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys. Peace.